Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's Brave Cat here with another amateur geophysics update where I try to cover space weather, earthquakes, and volcanism the best that I can here. So, I'm going to start things off here on the ISWA website where you can basically mess around with different layouts with all the different fancy widgets. What happened to this? What? Okay, that's not what it looked like 2 seconds ago. Oh well. So, here's what we got going on, and mostly why I'm starting off with this. Because we got these sunspots here on the oncoming limb, looking pretty big. Let's see. So I can zoom in, and so, okay, as we can see, this little sunspot group here, that's actually pretty average, pretty typical of what they would look like. And here is what is about to start facing Earth. Monstrous. I mean, these sunspots are nothing to scoff at. These are massive. Like, Carrington level sunspots here. So that's what is already mostly facing us, but within the next couple days or so, it's going to be facing us directly. That's kind of why part of why I made the video I made, what was that, yesterday, the day before, I think the 30th. Yeah, no, as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, here we go. It's kind of, one of two things here, basically. Either nothing happens, which would be another miracle, or very bad things happen, which wouldn't be that surprising at this point. Yeah, I know, I've turned into a complete doomer. Not completely, but, an optimistic doomer, I guess. So anyways, we've got a lot of stuff here. A lot of it I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what all this is. Even though I've been following this sort of stuff for a while, sort of casually. So anyways, though, it's taken a while to get all these feeds here to load, and some of them are still buffering. So that's why I see some of the choppiness, because they're, well, these are 5-minute increments, basically, over 24 hours, so there's a lot that it's trying to load. So there hasn't been any crazy flares. Well, I mean, there was an X 1.9. Nothing crazy. It actually basically shot on the kind of, left side. You can see it there. Couple shots of the sun here, so that incoming bright spot right there. Zoom in on that. That right there is the incoming Carrington sunspots, as we see there. So, pretty magnetically charged. If we go down here, this is probably the strangest widget. I'll just call them widgets. This is the strangest one I've seen. It's a magnetogram. So basically what you're looking at is the surface of the sun magnetically as it relates to the positioning of various planets and satellites. I don't fully understand this, but apparently it's a useful tool in predicting geomagnetic storms, because basically the circles are planets and the squares are satellites. So you got stereo A, satellite, which is the green square, and then you got Venus, which is the green circle. And then with Earth, that's the light blue circle, and then the light blue square is this satellite called Psyche. Kind of weird. So I believe what we're seeing here, if you take a look at the left side, with these, basically this is like the magnetic polarity on the sun. So I'm pretty sure what we're looking at with these you know, this group of blue and red dots here, blobs, I believe that is the Carrington level sunspots that we see. And that's what I'm just gonna call them Carrington level sunspots, because that's what they are. They're massive. I mean, it's actually multiple sunspot groups. Well, there's two. You know, honestly, I would kind of count this one on the very right here being kind of its own thing. But, you know, they're all magnetically related to each other, basically. And again, quite massive. If these things directly are facing Earth and decide to discharge with all their might in a solar flare, yeah, no, that's not going to be good. And sadly, you know, there's not going to be that many people that'll see it coming, because hardly anyone even bothers to pay attention to this stuff. Now I'll round off this here with just looking at the KP index and the X-ray flux over the past 30 days. So this is looking back to November, when we had the major geomagnetic storm, the 12th going to the 13th. That's what we see here, and then that's reflected here. So that's when we had quite a bit of solar activity. Not even a crazy amount, just a, you know, quite a substantial amount. And again, with the weakening of the magnetic field, any solar activity that we do get basically gets compounded. And then down here we've got the ionosphere electron flux kind of thing. So, you know, this is kind of like the way you can think of it, as like space radiation coming in as the sun-facing side rotates. And, you know, since we haven't had any major activity, everything here is going to still be looking green and yellow. And then this thing here in the middle is basically showing a side view of Earth's magnetic field. So off to the right side would be the direction of the sun, and, you know, it's basically always blasting us with, you know, the solar particles. And again, we haven't had anything major, and yet it looks like Earth's magnetic field is just always struggling at this point, which, I mean, it should not be doing that, pretty sure. Again, this is amateur level stuff that you know, coming from an amateur perspective. This just does not look normal, if you ask me. Looks like it's struggling, even though nothing is actually happening. And then this end little spiral here on the right. This thing's not always accurate, but it also shows another view of the activity. Again, showing planets and satellites. So that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the last 7 days of earthquakes. Again, this overlay, it's being covered up, but brought to you by Dutchsinse. Fantastic overlay. Still love using it. And so let's kind of take a look here. I've had a lot going on, so I haven't really had a chance to sit down and look at this. But, oh wow, okay, looks like we've got some bigger activity moving out of the Indo-Australian plate, headed towards Asia. And we see that already coming in here with these newer earthquakes. And that'll be headed off to Europe. Again, deep earthquakes here. Let's filter some of these out. Make it a little bit less cluttered here. So it's looking, you know, more or less kind of how things have been, except now we still have an increase in volcanic activity. So if we take a look at volcano discovery, again, we have another very long list of active volcanoes here. So let's see, Central Philippines, Indonesia, 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 Indonesia. Oh my gosh. So, wow. So if we take a look over here in the Indo-Australian plate, that's where we see a lot of the... Okay, that's the Italy. Let's go back down to this map here. So again, we see a lot of the active volcanoes stretching, you know, along the Ring of Fire. The volcanoes up in Alaska, looks like those have kind of mellowed out. But then, as we see down in South America also. And some of that's kind of reflected here in a lot of these deeper earthquakes. Some of this pressure is going out to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, as per usual. And like usual, we see a lot of equidistantly spaced earthquakes here. So whether it's the pressure incoming over here, going all the way around, even all the way to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Again, these pretty equidistantly spaced earthquakes here. And you know, we could probably expect one to hit up north. So, okay, so let's talk about Japan. Because, you know, this was my initial thought when we saw the huge swarm of earthquakes happening over here, is that it was like one of two things. Either it was directly leading up to a megaquake of some sort, or the thing that I kind of haphazardly theorized was that the massive swarm that we saw was actually the thing, like instead of a megaquake, you know, we had a very large swarm here. So, I mean, it's been a while. It's already been a couple weeks since then, so seems like maybe that was the case. I think there's just there's a lot of spots around here that are able to release the pressure, including Kamchatka here. So, you know, hopefully maybe some of that pressure that was threatening a megaquake ended up just going up here instead. You know, I'm not really sure, but you know, either way, luckily there was not anything major there in Japan, so that's good. And let's see, what is going on in the States? I'll have to turn that down. Huh, it looks eerily quiet. Let's take a look at the tremors. 7-day tremors here. So, pretty much the same exact thing that we've been seeing, with a pretty sizable tremor swarm north of the Bay Area, San Francisco, and then a bunch of peppered clusters down south. And then we compare that to the tremor map. So this is going to be looking pretty much the whole last month, just to give us a useful swath of data here. We see some of the activity picking back up again on Vancouver Island. That's, I would say, relatively newer, but that's kind of the middle of last month, it looks like. And then the newer activity is grouping up down here. Going into Oregon and Northern California is what we see on this map. And then on here, we get the rest of it going into middle to South California. So there's still a lot of incoming pressure, a lot of energy being released in the form of tremors, as usual. So even though things look quiet on the other feed, we can still tell that there's quite a lot going on. Well, it doesn't really look that quiet. So, what was the biggest one that we've seen here? There's 4... What is that? It's being blocked. 4.0. Is it? Oh, I guess so. No, that doesn't really make any sense. Because the rings, you know, it's showing the rings as a 5, pretty sure, right? Like, okay, maybe not. So we got a couple 4s, and a little bit of stuff off the coast, but nothing too crazy. And again, we still see a lot of the same exact spots being hit in Texas. And then, it looks like, that's interesting. Isn't this Nebraska? Oh, Kansas. Okay. Seeing an influx of activity in Kansas. Yeah, I think this up here, this is Nebraska, right? Anyways, so... it's looking interesting. What was this big quake up here in Alaska? 6.0. A lot of that pressure from over here is definitely moving. So when was that? That was like almost a full week ago. So we would definitely see a lot of that pressure moving in here. And I think that's what we see with some of these pink spots here. And it goes down into Central America, where Fuego and some of these other volcanoes are becoming more active. And it just keeps going down there, so that's kind of what we're looking like there. Yeah, I don't have really too much, like, forecasting insight. Again, I'm, like, doing my best version of kind of amateur level coverage here. But even given that, I would say I'm doing a pretty good job at trying to find as much of the data as possible, even if I don't exactly know what to do with it. But again, awareness. Simple awareness is always the first step. And, you know, I would say less of a doomer and more of just somebody who sees the truth. That's the way I see it. Let's see, is there anything else? Not really. I'm probably going to keep this layout here because it seems pretty useful. You can kind of see what's going on everywhere. Because this actually took me some time to get this set up here. You can browse through all the different widgets, all the different instruments that are used. And some of these are obsolete. Some of these have large chunks of missing data. So I had to filter through a lot of these, like even when we go through these red coronagraphs here, some of the ones that I tried just didn't seem too useful, very choppy, missing data. And then once you get all these put in here, then you have to wait for some of these to buffer. So it looks like this one here is actually mostly loaded. It's still a little bit choppy, but you kind of get the idea. There was, if we just pause that, you can actually kind of go through some of these here. Looks like there was a plasma filament that kind of erupted to the north. And looks like most of that kind of went back down into the sun. But it's like, there's a bit of a skip. But it looks like it went back down, so that's good. And then we take a look at this one. Might have to pause it. So let's see. Now I'm trying to wonder, is that the Carrington sunspot? Because, okay, that's where it is now. So again, it's almost directly facing us. And yeah, no, that looks about right. So those bright active regions there. And then you have something kind of to the north, but you don't see it on there. Still, again, like trying to figure out what all this means exactly and how to properly analyze it. I mean, that's why some very smart scientists have these jobs. Anyways, though, I think that'll about do it. Eyes open, no fear. I'll have some links in the description. I've been following Space Weather News, Ben Davidson, for quite a long time. And, you know, for someone who's in their mid-20s, it's kind of a tall order to be paying attention to this stuff, to be letting go of distractions and nonsense, because the vast majority of people that are my age couldn't even be fucked to look at all this stuff and see what's really going on. So honestly, it's a miracle that I've even gotten this far and have tried to prep what I can. And I hope others do the same. But anyways, that'll do it. Hope y'all having a good one, and I'll catch you all next time. Yes, I kind of forgot to cover Europe, so I'm gonna go through that really quickly here. Blah blah blah, okay, let's see. Man, I haven't used this program in like a week. Okay, so here is the EMSC last 100 for 2.5 and greater. Looks like a mess. That's what it looks like. So let's zoom in here. We got like Western Turkey, and then we got like, you know, Greece and those kind of areas there, Mediterranean. So again, same spot in Western Turkey as always. That is just really cluttered. I might turn off the rings actually, so we can actually see what's going on. And then, okay, let's go back here really quick because we got this map here again on volcano discovery, showing a little bit more detail on the earthquakes, specifically in Italy. Again, there's some volcanoes in here that we want to pay attention to, so it's always important. Looks like we got pretty much widespread 2.0 activity, with threes being kind of more focused on the eastern side of Europe. So, you know, kind of like with what we see happening in the United States with all these tremor swarms, it's always going to indicate that there's pressure moving, that there's energy being released. So, you know, given the fact that it's just global at this point of seeing all this, it can be kind of a good sign, okay? If we see a lot of this go completely quiet, then that is going to be an indicator of pressure building. So, given everything else going on, it is actually a good sign to see some of these, although, and this is the big kind of thing to keep in mind, is that some of this is directly related to volcanism. So when you see tremors happening in volcanically active areas, that has to do with, you know, possibly the volcanic chambers themselves, which is not a good sign. So it's a bit of a give and take, but this is what we see going on in Europe. Pressure moving north into the Arctic Circle. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure I cover that.